Okay, so I am going to show you some basics of Flash animation here. And the first thing to look at inside of the Flash window is my layout. I will be using the classic layout, and you can change your layout. Common one that you'll see is Animator layouts right up here. But I am using the classic. It's the one I'm most familiar with, so that's what I'm setting up. You can see down here that I have a white rectangle. That is my stage, and everything out here off to the side. You can draw and create things out there, but they won't show in your finished movie. Now your project is asking for a project that is 640 by 480. So I can either, when I set up a new project, enter that right in here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave this at 24 frames a second and ActionScript 3. Or I could also make those same changes up here in Document. I can also here change my background color. Let's say I want to have a green background, which I don't. But the thing about that is you can't change your background color throughout the movie. So a lot of times it's easier just to make a background color or background image or something that is drawn on a rectangle, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and change that back to white because the green kind of burns my retinas a little bit. Okay. For bouncing a basketball in a can, I'm going to take this down a little bit to maybe 75%. I'm going to type that in there so I can see the whole thing. I have all of my drawing tools here, and actually Flash has tools that are similar to Illustrator. In fact, back in the day, a lot of artists actually used the drawing tools here because they developed the drawing tools in Flash before they did the ones in Illustrator. So now see, with this one selected, I can go ahead and fill that. I have a fill and I have a stroke. So I can draw anything in here. I can also, by the way, use gradient fills. And I'm going to get those by opening up my color palette. We'll talk more about those later. I'm going to delete this object. Notice how it treats the fills and strokes differently as different objects, so you have to double click the fill in order to get the stroke also. Okay, but again, back to bouncing the ball into the can. I'm going to go ahead here and take my oval tool. Don't use the primitives, just use the regular ovals and rectangles for this particular project. And I'm going to go ahead and draw the back of the garbage can. And I'm not liking how that gradient fill is working for me there. So I am going to open up my color. By the way, I kind of want my colors and swatches over here on the controls, so I'm just dragging them over. Okay, I want this to be gradient fill, but remember, whenever you make a gradient fill, the things that are black go away from you and the things that are light come towards you. So I want the back of the can to be going away, and actually I want this whole thing to be a bit dark because it's a hole in a can. So I'm going to go ahead and select kind of dark greens for that if I'm going to have a green can. Then I am going to fill that, and you can see actually I have light, dark, light, and I don't want that. There we go. So there's the hole the way that I want it. I'm going to label this by double clicking. I'm going to call it the back of the can. Now I'm going to make another layer. This can be the front of the can here, and I'm going to go ahead and just draw a rectangle for this. and going to select my black arrow and roll over, and you can see how my cursor changes. When my cursor changes, I can go ahead and just pull, and that will round the can for me. I'm going to round the bottom even though you can't see it. We'll lift both of those things up so we can see the bottom of the can. Now this should have a linear fill on it, so I'm going to go ahead and put a linear. Actually, the back of the can should also have a linear fill. Let's make this a little bit lighter so we can see it. That's why it looked funny for me. It's because I had a radial fill and I wanted a linear. Radial being round and linear being lines up and down, obviously. Okay, so there is my garbage can. So I have the back of the can. I'm going to label the front of the can. Okay, now I need to make the basketball. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down my shift key to keep the front and back proportionate here. And a ball I do want to have a radial fill on, so I'm going to go ahead and open up my color palette. Give myself a radial fill. And let's make this a red ball maybe. Reverse that. There we go. There's a good fill for it. So there's my ball and there's the can. And I'm going to move this off. Notice again how it's treating the stroke and the fill differently, and I don't need a stroker on that. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. Now your project has to be 45 seconds long. So 45 seconds times 24 seconds, or 24 frames per second, that would equal, whoops, clear. 24 frames per second times 45 seconds means that this, for your big project, it has to be 1080 frames long. But really, I just want this to be, just for bouncing the ball on the can's sake, about 6 seconds long. So I'm going to say 6 times 24 frames per second. Again, the 24 frames per second I'm getting right here. See, 24 FPS. So I need it to be 144 frames. So I want the trash can and the ball to all exist for 144 frames. I can also see that I made a mistake here because I only have 2 layers, but I have the front of the can, the back of the can, and the ball. So let's see, I drew the ball on the same layer as the front of the can, so I actually need to select that, and I'm going to cut it, Control X, make a new layer. Also notice here how these dots, these have black dots and that has a white dot. That means there's nothing drawn in this particular layer yet. So I'm going to select it. Watch what happens when I paste that ball in there. Now it has a black circle. So now my ball is in a different layer. Okay. Now I want these all to exist out to 6 seconds, which we just did the math, and that's 144 frames. So I'm going to go ahead and just right click and drag my cursor down here and insert a frame. Now these items are all on here for 6 seconds. Watch what happens here if I remove those frames. You can see that the front and the back of my can, or the back of the can, is disappearing because it exists over here but not here. And so when I move this red thing, which is called the playback head, the back of the can disappears. I'm going to go ahead, right click, and insert a frame now that everything is there that whole time. So let's animate the ball. I'm going to right click just anywhere in here and create a motion tween. And as I explained in class, what a motion tween is the senior animators in any kind of animation company do what we call the keyframe. So if Mickey Mouse is jumping, they draw Mickey Mouse on the bottom ready to pounce, and they draw Mickey Mouse's cheerleading pose in the air. And then the junior animators draw all the little pictures in between. So, and it's called tweening. And what we're asking Flash to do is to tween. We'll give it the keyframes, and it will do the rest. Notice there when I did that, it said, do you want to make this a symbol? And yes, we do want to make it a symbol. Anything that is that has scripting or animation applied to it has to be a symbol. What that means now, if I open up my library, there it is right there. So I could actually draw out multiple copies. Let me make another layer and do that. I can drag out all the copies I want. So once something is a symbol in the library, it can be used over and over and over again. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this layer by selecting it and hitting the garbage can. Okay, now this has the tween applied, so I can actually start doing animation. So I'm going to move my playback head here to frame 12. Or it's actually frame 13, I can see right here. If I go to frame 12, since I'm at 24 frames a second, that's half a second in. So where do I want the ball to be? If I just drag it using my black arrow, I've created a keyframe. And Flash will do all the motion for me. So another half a second, I want it down here. Another half a second, I want it up here. Okay, and notice now that my ball, by moving the playback head I can see what's going on. The ball is going in front of the can, so I have to rearrange my layers. So I'm going to drag my ball layer down. And there we go. I've animated the ball. Now, you can see right here that doesn't look very good. I'm cutting through. So I could either move my points, or just like I move the edge of that can, I can bend this in. I can bend my tween lines here. So if I hit Control Enter or Control Test Movie, there's my animation. Now if I want to add sound to this movie, I would just import sound to library. And say I have a Christmas tree song, which I got with a Creative Commons license here. There it is. What I imported is now in my library, so all I have to do is make a sound layer, which I'm going to put at the bottom for simplicity. Call it sound. And then I can drag the sound right out onto that layer. Hit Control Enter to test my movie. Now, if we could actually hear it really well, you'd hear that that was probably overlapping itself the more times it played, because we didn't have a stop audio in there. That requires a little bit of coding. Or you may want to open up your sound in one of our sound programs, and it's very easy to cut it down to 45 seconds in length, your sound. Okay, I could also put sound effects if I wanted just a sound effect, like right here. Insert a keyframe, and let me import to library sound that is just more of a sound effect. So I'm going to go out to my desktop, and I have a grunt. So now I have that keyframe right there. I can open this up, grab my grunt, just drop it on there, and there we go. Just such a nice little Christmas. Okay. Oh, and there's more to animation. Whoops, move this stuff all over. Let's move this. I squish everything over. There's more to animation than just motion. For instance, I can hit my transform here, and I can squash this. I can rotate it. I could have it actually, if I open up the properties, I can do color effect, alpha, and fade it. So there's all kinds of different things you can do with your animation in here to make this more interesting. Anyway, good luck and have a lot of fun with this project.